Chapter 42. The Rise of the Evil Power. The third week of May began, that Monday, May 14, 2012, after the exams for the first quarter of the academic year. Everyone met at the Asgard Ranch to devise the plan with which they would boycott the Sylvanetia coronation parade in the town. Some boys after the exam, at around 9 in the morning, were investigating around the school to verify if Sylvanetia had been seen there that day, but according to the words of the teachers, she would continue to be absent for a trip. He would only return for his coronation and then would be present in about 2 months. In the afternoon at the ranch, in the meeting room, they would begin to make decisions about what awaited them the next morning. We must divide into teams for certain times of the day. The coronation parade will begin in the amusement park, will pass in front of the great cathedral and will culminate in the city hall, as I remember. The Princess of Asturias had told us that the holy water of the great cathedral had been desecrated by Sylvanetia. This makes me think that when passing by the cathedral, people will drink from containers of it, just as the witch said on the news that time, said Gavin. What time will the parade start? Asked Roger. According to the news, at 9 in the morning, said Priscilla. Will we use the Zeppelin? Asked Naomi. Yes, but we have to use it to get somewhere. Away and walk to the parade, said Gavin. It could be that we go 5 groups, 1 of 3 in the preview of the parade, the 2nd of 4 at the beginning of the parade, the 3rd of 4 around noon, that break into the Grand Cathedral to eliminate the vassal there and restore the sacred water. The 4th group of 4 will go in the afternoon and the last group of 3 at closing at night. Black added as a suggestion. Gavin, you forget that the headless pontiff only appears at night. Marycross interrupted. Hell, it's true, the night group must defeat him, however. The 3rd group must break into the cathedral to purify the holy water, while the other groups will attack the parade, said Gavin. How will we attack the parade? Asked Adrian. It will be simple. Louis, Priscilla, Adrian and Chaka will be leaders of those groups. You will be in charge of using Somnuga, so that people do not concentrate on observing Sylvanetia. And do not access the great cathedral either. In each of those groups there will be a light magician to use Statuna and recover the people so that they can go to their homes. Marycross, Mariah, Katie and Naomi, and followed by this, Tony, Bastian, Angelica, Alvord, Emily, Roger and Alessio will support in case the Sentinels interfere. We will not use a support group, please. The others stay at the ranch to ensure it. We don't want another invasion. Gavin explained. Does that mean that you, I and Black will be a group? Angie asked. Yes, we will face the vassal, tomorrow at night, Gavin answered. What will the other groups be like? Louis asked. The first group will be Louis, Mariah and Tony. The second group with Priscilla, Marycross, Angelica and Alvord. The 3rd group with Adrian, Naomi, Bastian and Emily. Followed by the 4th group with Chaka, Katie, Roger and Alessio. And lastly, Angie, me and Black at night, Gavin argued, explaining to everyone. The departure times will be at 800 hours, at 900 hours, at 1200 hours, at 1600 hours. Said Roger. Correct, friend. And we at 1700. We will arrive at the great cathedral just at dusk, said Gavin. Great. And listen, take your nav. If something happens and a group is in danger, don't forget to notify it. Also, if a group needs support from another, let them know, exclaimed Angie. Katie, you who are in the group near ours, keep in mind that we could need you for healing if required, so stay close to the great cathedral. Gavin told her friend and she gave a thumbs up. Her to agree. Night came. Everyone prepared with their hoods for the next day. A risky and complex mission began. According to an investigation by Alex and his group, Silvanisha wanted to use this parade to convert the 7% of the population who did not yet know about the rebels, through his words, his conviction, and the desecrated sacred water. He would use all this to end to convince those who did not know about them so that the entire town would completely turn against the group. The next morning, classes had been suspended in a message on the news the night before, to commemorate the reign of Silvanisha in the town on Tuesday, May 15, at around 7:40 in the morning. The first group to leave for the beginning of the parade at the amusement park. The first group with Louis, Mariah and Tony in the Zeppelin left them near the amusement park. As they walked for a few meters, they were already beginning to notice the first people waiting for the parade to start, when the boys approached stealthily. Since there were sentinels nearby, they noticed that the barred doors that led to the landing pad of the hangar next to the amusement park were open. "Look. What the hell are those things?" asked Tony. "Are they machines?" Mariah responded. "Armament," Louis concluded. And that was when the doors of the landing strip opened completely and a caravan of machines began to leave. Zeppelins even more sophisticated than the one at the ranch took off through the skies. With rockets on its sides, drones, small ships that sounded like a swarm of bees with their 4 propellers, the sentinels were placed in the form of an honor guard while on the ground. It began to shake and there were tanks with cannons and gigantic 4-wheeled carriages carrying missiles. "Company, forward. Begin," shouted one of the sentinels who was leading the beginning of the caravan. The parade had begun. Meanwhile at the ranch, the other groups that were waiting for their respective departure times, watched the news on the television to observe all the technological weaponry that was being deployed along the main street. "So those are the fearsome weapons that speak to the ones that will stop us," said Roger. "It is a shame that a people's resources are invested in weapons of war. Instead of improving education and the care of ecosystems, technology is not bad, but it should be used for good," said Alvord. Louis contacted the ranch and informed them that the parade had already begun and they began their work against the first people who were watching. At around 8:20, Louis, Tony and Mariah began their mission. Louis infiltrated near a group of people, and they shouted, "Damn blasphemous scoundrels. I hope that with these weapons they flee from here. Or that they are destroyed," a lady shouted as she watched the parade of weapons pass by in front of her. Louis with his hood took out his wand and launched Samnuga towards that group, creating a small screen of moss green smoke. The people around them began to feel a little sleepy from the sleeping pill. Followed by this, Tony covered the backs of Louis and Mariah because of the fact that some sentinel would discover them. Mariah began using Statuna against the group that Louis had filled with sleeping pill. And by removing the negative state of sleep, some of them regained consciousness a little and decided to leave the parade. "What are we doing here? I should be at home enjoying the day off," some people said after the impact of Statuna. "It worked," said Mariah. "Well done, Mariah. That's how it's done. Come, let's get the rest," said Louis. "Guys, Gavin's plan is working. So far no stupid sentinel has interfered, but Statuna, after curing the sleeping pill state, is making them come to their senses. Over and out," said Tony through his nav towards the ranch, where Gavin, Black and Angie were extremely happy that the plan was working out. "Excellent. If the plan continues like this, and the third group purifies the sacred water, we can say that a percentage, he will not have faith in Silvanisha," said Black, and so the group of Louis, Mariah and Tony successively began to do this with all the groups of people on both sides of the street until ending at City Hall. It was around 9 in the morning, which corresponded to the task of the second group. There were Priscilla, Marycross, Angelica and Alvord. The parade had started barely 40 minutes ago, so Priscilla, Marycross, Angelica and Alvord were near the amusement park after getting off the Zeppelin. We will do this, we will go a little further up the parade, since the starting areas have already been covered by the first group, said Priscilla. I agree, let's communicate it with Louis, said Alvord. It would be a good idea for the third group starts from City Hall, right? So that we can all meet in the center of the event, asked Marycross. Yes, you're right. Let's do it that way, Angelica concluded, and the four continued on their way to the second segment of the parade, where the machines had not yet arrived, since the parade was advancing slowly. After walking, they came to find the people who were sitting and standing around the street waiting for the arms parade, so following the patterns that Louis had made. Priscilla took out her spellbook and cast Somnuga, where a black cloud was positioned above the people who were watching the parade. And they began to feel a little tired in their expressions. Alvord with his whip, in a fairly fast movement that not even the human eye could tell. He snatched some bottles of desecrated holy water from people's hands so that they would not continue drinking it. Following this, Marycross was being guarded by Angelica behind her back to use Statuna and remove the effect of these people. In the second group the mission was being a success. In addition to the fact that the Sentinels were not finding out either, guys, here pry, just as happened with the first group. In the second segment of the parade the people under the effect of the Statuna were they are leaving the place. We will continue moving forward, over and out, said Priscilla. Excellent. That is, Angie responded over the nav. Keep it up, Gavin said. The third group with Adrian, Naomi, Bastian and Emily, arrived towards the middle of the parade around noon. The route of the arms parade would cross in front of the great cathedral in the Central Park. There the boys walked from where the Zeppelin landed and they reached this area. There they first began to cleanse the people. Adrian, through the ability to steal from his ring, began to infiltrate the different groups of people to steal their desecrated bottles of holy water. In addition to that, leaving small smoke bombs at different points of the third segment of the parade. This took Adrian around 20 minutes to do along both streets. When he finally finished using his cinder ring on his arm, he began to activate these bombs and they shot a cloud of Somnuga, where people, like Louis and Priscilla, began to feel sleepy. We're ready, guys. People are in a dream effect, said Adrian. Good. It's my turn. Naomi responded and began to use Statuna with all the groups to cure their sleeping state. And while this was happening on both streets, Bastian and Emily were watching Naomi's back from any sentinel who discovered them. Fortunately it was not. Like that, and after half-hour, they had finished. There were fewer and fewer people in the parade, since most were leaving, so the group decided to go immediately to the great cathedral. Around noon, the four of them arrived at the great cathedral, that imposing building with two spurred towers in a Gothic style made of white marble, a neo-Gothic church, its metal frame on its front facade. On its side walls has in the rosette the niches of the gargoyles, images of celestial deities on their door pediments. The triforium of the great cathedral is in one piece on its central facade. It contains three pointed arch windows, and above it is located the rose window next to its cross and the bars through which the breeze and evening light enter. The entrances to it are made up of a large nave broken down into three parts, a central one and two side naves. The entrance has two side chapels and the back has an ambulatory made up of 5 chapels. There are 2 side doors for access from the right and left sides, which in this case would be due to the position of the great cathedral. Its towers are facing west, through which its side entrances would be to the north and south. The facade it has 3 doors, one for each nave. The supporting elements are columns. The stairs are a metal spiral and were placed in the towers to access the clock and the bell tower in each one. The left tower has the clock with its gear, while the right tower has the bell tower. Within the niches located in the 6 main columns of the facade are the images of Eshin. This image was on the front facade, but was taken inside due to deterioration of the climate. In addition to the images of the celestial deities, the jambs and archivolts are on the side doors. They are formed by 3 architrave angels, these being of different shapes and sizes from the sides. On the side facades we have simplistic geometric glass in sapphire, amber and bronze colors. In some you can see some images of the celestial deities, the slab, abutments and flying buttresses. In addition to their structural function, they give the building a very Gothic physiognomy. Strong. The pinnacles are located on the columns, and their interaction with the flying buttresses is one of the decorative elements that gives the greatest Gothic character to the great cathedral. In the central naves the pinnacles are gargoyles and statuettes of Eshin. Inside, the vault of ribbed is found throughout the ceiling, resting its edges on the pillars. Once the boys reached the center of the place inside after appreciating all its architectural value, they asked themselves where the sacred water could be. What sections does this place have? Where could the sacred water be? Adrian asked. It's simple, it must be in the sacred spring. All the sacred water comes from there. It is an underground part under the crypt, Naomi explained. If so, let's look for the place, rule out the access to it. Bell tower, clock, its gear, the mausoleum and chapel of purgatory, said Bastian. Let's look on the central floor. There must be some door or access to the underground, said Emily. Yes, let's go immediately, said Adrian. Naomi, could you explain that thing about the crypt in the spring? Asked Bastian. The crypt has 2 sections. In one lie the tombs of the former members of the great cathedral, such as patriarchs, priests, pontiffs, vicars, cardinals, clerics, sacristans, also the mausoleum. In addition, in the other section from this, there is a large rock where it is assumed that many years ago a native girl found a replica of Eshin in it. So people access the crypt to deliver their requests, and below this is the spring. There is a fountain under the cave or rock in which it is said Eshin appeared to the girl. There is a spring of water, which is highly appreciated by the faithful devotees of Pizcet, since they believe it to be sacred, and that for be at their disposal. It was channeled through an internal pipe a few meters away, outside the great cathedral, where people are currently drinking from it, but it was desecrated by the witch. Some people wash parts of their entire body, to ask for a favor or physical and spiritual healing. Others carry them in canteens and bottles to have them in their homes and drink them, Naomi argued. I understand. Then let's split up and look for the doors. Maybe one will take us to the underground, said Bastian. Thus the boys entered the great cathedral. Inside they heard an organ that set the scene. First Emily went to the right of the place, opening the first door, where it connected with a chapel and some spiral steps that led to one of the towers. After investigating in the chapel if there were more doors, he found nothing, followed by Bastian that in the back door on one side of the presbytery there was another door, like a prop. Hey Emily! Look what's here, he shouted Bastian. So Emily approached and Bastian told her to look at the trunk inside that apartment. In that place, Emily opened the trunk and there was a golden clarinet. Emily taking it and blowing on it, a sword with a blade of golden light came out of this, my last weapon. The bright saber. I have found her, said Emily happily after having found her last weapon. Adrian was very close to the presbytery and the organ, but in these parts he found nothing. Naomi was on the right side. There were the accesses to the balconies and upper floors. In addition to the staircase to access the other balcony, after more than 10 minutes, very close to the wooden seats that were in the room, Adrian came up with a plan. Hey, look at that. On the side of the presbytery, said Adrian. Oh yes, it's a baptism fountain, said Naomi. Will that use the water from the spring? Emily asked. Hey, you're right. That is the entrance to the spring, said Naomi. Well, let's see, said Bastian. After approaching the place, Bastian noticed that the pool was a little strange and was moving, so, with his strength, he moved it to one side, where in the middle of it there were steps, and they went down. After descending some spiral steps, they arrived at a room where there were 3 doors. There was the mausoleum, the purgatory chapel and the crypt, so the 4 of them headed through the crypt, and upon entering this door, they found 3 other doors again. One pointed towards the spring and the other towards the crypt, and the last was a staircase that went down to the catacombs of Pizcet, so they took the path of the spring. And inside it was a large fountain where the water was on the floors. When they arrived, harp music was playing around the place. But they noticed something strange after continuing to advance through the place illuminated by giant candles. Look at that, in the fountain, it's like a shell, said Bastian. I think it's which causes the water to be desecrated, said Adrian. That's right, look over there on the left. The water comes out a normal color, but when it passes through this shell it turns brown, said Naomi. We must destroy the shell, so that the holy water returns to its original state, said Emily. Let's do it, said Bastian. The 4 of them began to hit the armor hard. It became incandescent pink, brown, and then went out and changed its color to black. Bastian threw his axe against the armor. The armor did not make any attack to defend itself, it was simply there. Everyone began to notice that the armor was cracking due to the blow of the axe, so they continued hitting it with more force. Emily took the opportunity to use her new weapon, the gold clarinet in its hilt. She formed a sword of gold light, Brightsaber, and gave her a strong blow. Naomi hit her with her spear. Adrian, before his turn, told the others to combine their magic with their weapons, so the blow would be more critical, so he threw Bernaga bombs against the breastplate. Bastian used his axe with Bernaga in the same way, in addition to using it without magic to give him a stronger blow. Emily again attacked with her sword, where the light of it turned flaming reddish by the Bernaga and hit the breastplate. Naomi used her spear again with her multiple attack, and Adrian again threw explosives. So on for more than 15 minutes, while the boys felt exhausted. Naomi used Gila to recover her energy. Finally, after 20 minutes of hitting the shell, they broke it. And as it turned to dust, it began to dissipate, causing the water to once again take away its brown color, and will begin to return to its normal state. We did it, Naomi said. Good teamwork, said Emily, all thanks to my strength. Ha ha, said Bastian. Oh please, don't brag, said Emily. Adrian, call the others. Tell them that we purified the holy water in the spring, said Naomi. Okay, said Adrian, and he took his nav and he communicated to the others and those of the ranch the success of the mission in the crypt. And thus the people who drank the water from now on in the parade would not be possessed again. The 4th group with Chaka, Katie, Roger and Alessio, at around 4 in the afternoon, left in the Zeppelin heading a few meters before the city hall. They began to walk to reach what seemed like the last segment of the parade. Here, Chaka moved forward to infiltrate the groups of people at the parade, followed by Katie behind him, where she summoned Coco and Cleo to accompany them. How can Coco and Cleo help us? Asked Roger. Coco and Cleo with their fur can produce somnuga. When they infiltrate people, they will shake off their fur and that way we will help Chaka, Katie argued. Excellent idea, Alessio responded. See you at the end of the street, Chaka said as he walked away into the crowd. Chaka opened the cork of her jikara and all the contents transformed into a cloud of purple somnuga dust and smoke, causing people to begin to feel sleepy from the sleeping pill. Then, Katie sent Coco to the right side of the street, and Cleo on the left side, and among the crowds, both were shaking their fur. Just as she indicated, she used statuna to cure the negative states, and the people began to leave, Alessio and Roger. Each one by one street were watching Katie and Chaka's backs while they did their job. The sentinels were so stupid that they had no idea about their plan that they had been carrying out for more than 9 hours. So finally this group and the previous ones met in the small square from the park. The group of Adrian, Emily, Bastian and Naomi had been late since they were creating a lamp inside the great cathedral, and because of this same lamp, everyone returned to the ranch. Except for Katie and Roger, who waited near the park in case Angie, Black and Gavin needed help during the night. Finally, the trio of Angie, Black and Gavin, at 6 in the afternoon, walked from the ranch to Central Park, avoiding the sentinels that they would encounter in the neighborhood and in the town. Upon reaching the center of town, the three of them went up to the roof of one of the buildings near the park, since at around 6:30 minutes, Sylvanetia was being decorated as queen, where the Vice Mayor Roosevelta Bouquets was placing the crown on her. After that moment, it was unleashed a sea of applause. The parade of weapons had stopped in front of her, and on top of the vehicle, she was along with the other members of the Lunesque Station, Grand Cathedral and City Hall. The witch got ready to give her speech. "We should wait a moment," said Angie. "What are we waiting for?" Gavin asked. "When the 7 chimes of the great cathedral clock ring, we will go to it," Angie responded. "Well, we will have to wait." "Let's wait on this roof," said Black as he sat on the roof of one of the buildings of the place and watched the ceremony. After the three sat on the roof with their hoods, they appreciated the weapons of mass destruction that it had, the drones flying with their propellers around the Central Park and the great cathedral. In addition to the zeppelins with rockets that floated in the heights, the terrestrial machines pointed their missiles towards the sky. "Look at that, those people. What are they doing?" said Black. "I think they are the fireworks for when the witch finishes her speech," said Gavin. "That's it. That will be our signal. When people are distracted by that, we will enter the Grand Cathedral," said Angie. "Okay," Black and Gavin responded. At the end of Sylvanetia's coronation ceremony, she was wearing a white dress and her veil. She stood up from her throne and stood in front of the crowd that applauded her. She raised her hands, and as if it were an echo with a large megaphone, he began his reign speech. "Citizens of Pizcet, on this day we have achieved a transition. For more than 200 years, the Republic of Pizcet remained the great achievement that crowned the civilized inhabitants, but there were certain people who turned us against each other, and we have taken up arms to defend our way of life against the rebels of the first sin. The former mayors, patriarchs, directors, heads of the Lunesque Station, never suspected that the greatest threat came from within our town, until I began this investigation. The rebels of the first sin and their entourage of followers who roam the surroundings have conspired to create their shadow, from the school, from their homes where they pay their sentence of house arrest. Their leaders have sent these henchmen to attack us. They hope to lead the town to ruin. But the hatred in their hearts could not be hidden forever. The day has finally come when our enemies have shown their true nature. Fortunately, I have been able to return the wealth that was stolen from this place. We owe all these weapons, drones, cannons, combat zeppelins that you see around you to our great arms and technological race of the great campus. Only in this way will we fight against these blasphemous scoundrels." The rebels unleashed their destructive power against the people by assassinating the head of the government, namely the mayor, the patriarch and the head of the Lunesque Station. and usurping control of the Lunesque Special Forces, but the objectives of those who aspired to be tyrants have been confronted by us, stopping them completely. The rebels who still wander around, listen to me. You will be hunted and defeated. Furthermore, any of your collaborators will suffer the same fate, and this time luck will not be with you. These have been difficult times, but we have passed the test. I would like to tell you that there was an attack against me at the school. It has left scars on my cheeks and my face has been deformed. But I assure you that my determination has never been stronger. Even if the war continues, we will continue attacking those who join the rebel group. We are facing a new principle to guarantee our continued security and stability. The Republic of Pizcet must be reorganized and converted into a more powerful people. Therefore, I, as the new queen who have proclaimed myself thanks to your support, I promise that we will have a stable and secure society. And I assure you that it will last for the next 200 years. After finishing his speech and raising his hands towards the sky, the hubbub, emotion, screams and applause flooded this declamation. Deluded, said Black. It made me sick to hear those words, said Gavin, and Angie added, the manipulated, ignorant and weak are the ones who applaud. This is how democracies, peace and freedom die. At the end Sylvanicia's speech, the fireworks began to celebrate, where Angie, Gavin and Black came down from the roof and stealthily through the streets among the crowd they headed to the great cathedral. After continuing walking, they began to hear the 7 bells that marked 7 at night. There are the bells, we've had good time. The headless pontiff must have already appeared, Angie told her friends. The 3 ran and after about 5 minutes, they arrived at the great cathedral. They opened the side gates that had bars. Black and Gavin pushed the gates, while Angie lowered one of the levers. Upon entering this place, they began to hear the music of an organ. What is that music? Gavin asked. I know where it comes from, Angie said. I think it comes from the presbytery, said Black. So the 3 entered towards the main hall, where the wooden seats were. At the back of the altar and the presbytery, in one of the corners, Sylvanicia was playing the organ with a psychedelic tone. And when the 3 approached, Black shouted, this will be your end, witch. Ha ha ha, exclaimed the witch as she turned around in the seat of the organ, and when she got up, everything was an illusion, since she became a ghost in a black toga, a chain in her hands and a book in her hands. The subject did not I had a head. Damn, it's the headless pontiff, Angie shouted. Ha ha ha, the town now belongs to Sylvanicia, said the headless pontiff as he dissipated. He is no longer there? Gavin said. Where did he go? Black asked, when suddenly the organ music continued playing and a voice with an echo throughout the acoustics of the grand cathedral told them, tonight, we are going to play a game, find me and face your destiny. It said the same voice that the headless pontiff had. Where do we look for it? Gavin asked. He must be right here, Angie said. That demon locked us in. Look, the gates are closed. We must defeat him if we want to get out of here, Black said. So the 3 began to look for him in every corner inside the great cathedral. The boys gave chase against the headless pontiff. Before starting, Black asked Angie about the legend of the pontiff, to which she responded, according to his legend, he appears to people who stay up late around the park of the great cathedral. He appears at the door of the temple while you begin to hear the melody of the organ. From a distance you can see a normal pontiff, but when you approach him to eliminate your sins, you see his decapitated head spilling blood on his hands and his prayer chain. People who face him suffer from nulaga. They lose their senses of speech, for example. They lose them for life, Angie explained. First, the boys found the staircase that Adrian, Emily, Bastian and Naomi opened in the baptism pool to access the underground, so they went down there. In the area of the sacred water spring, the water continued to flow normally. When they left there, they entered the crypt. Inside it was the pontiff, and upon seeing them, He again dissipated. It can't be. He is playing us. Angie said, we must follow him, Gavin said, and suddenly, two gargoyles appeared with clubs ready for a duel. So the three positioned themselves to eliminate the three gargoyles that wanted to attack them. They used attacks from Rokarga, Bersaka, Mitarga, Frenaga. But quickly with the magic of Angie's golden crossbow, Black's bazooka and Gavin's Avitus boomerang they easily eliminated them. After the duel against the gargoyles, Black found something very peculiar in the crypt. Wait, look at this, said Black. He pointed to one of the parts of the crypt that had an image of a goat and some letters. The image of the goat had 12 spaces around it as if in a circle. The letters could not be read. It seems to be Mo language. The same one that was in a writing when we confronted Berenice a few years ago, said Gavin. We'll see about that later. Let's keep looking for that demon, said Angie. So when they left the crypt, they headed to the other door, which led to the catacombs, but this was already another area and the boys knew that they were not going to be found there. On the second level of the great cathedral, there was the mausoleum and the purgatory chapel, so they first visited the mausoleum and upon entering, they again saw the silhouette of the pontiff dissipate and again another duel against three gargoyles. The result was the same. The boys were victorious. Then, upon leaving there, they headed towards the purgatory chapel, where upon entering they again observed the silhouette of the pontiff. Black fired a bullet at him, but again it was an illusion. In that place, they noticed a small flame inside a glass jar. As you approached, below that flame there was another altar, where it had a heart engraved with a belt of thorns, a flame, as well as an eye on its body. What is this? Said Angie. Look. It has exactly the same phrase in Mo language that we saw in the crypt, said Gavin. It seems that this one has this slot to deposit something, said Black. Well, as soon as we defeat the pontiff, we must return to these two places to see what we can investigate about what it says there. They could be clues, said Angie. Let's go up to the towers. They are the only places we have left to go, Gavin suggested. Let's go first to the clock tower, said Black. So the three went first to the tower on the left side to access the clock tower. They began to climb the spiral stairs where gargoyles appeared again. They defeated them without any problem. After climbing the steps they came to a door. When they opened it, they found a huge room where there was a giant gear that gave life to the four faces of the clock that this tower had, since it had a clock to the south, north, east and west. The faces of the clock were on the external side, and from each one came out enormous nuts the size perhaps about 5 meters. All that mechanical mechanism made a loud sound, and the minute hands could be heard loudly coming from the outside, the gear towards a sonic ticking, and on the wooden floor that it had. The three began to walk through this place, until they saw the pontiff again on top of one of the nuts. Angie shot him an arrow, but he again dissipated. When they left this place and went down the steps, they went up to the tower right, where the bell tower was located. After opening a door again as in the room with the clock and gear, they entered the bell tower, where thousands of pigeons, owls and bats fled through the holes of this tower, and in front of them, there were the 4 iron bells. These had a name, Isis, referring to the district. Mavil, Josefka and Arafieli were the names of the daughters of the creator of these iron pieces. They were built by a blacksmith from the town in 1861. They were part of the old Great Red Cathedral of the past, and they moved to the new building at the end of 1960. While the boys appreciated the bells, the pontiff again appeared and rang one of the bells, where there was a strong vibration in the room where they were. They found it and it disappeared again. So the boys went down from here and arrived again at the main hall, where the organ played again. There the pontiff was sitting. This time he did get up and told them, enough of the games. Now, it will be the end. The duel began. The headless pontiff had a book of spells in his right hand, and in his other hand, a chain, and he threw Bersaka against the boys. One by one a black ray struck each of them. None of them of the three caused them to berserk. Angie shot an arrow at Bernaga with her crossbow. Gavin shot a ring of fire with his Avitus disc. And finally Black shot Bernaga's bullet at him. All three attacks were very critical hits against the pontiff. However, he used his spellbook and cast Petrarga against Black, turning him into stone. So Angie took out an antidote from her bag and cured his condition. Again the pontiff used his book and cast Electraga and Bernaga against Angie and Gavin. And for the third consecutive turn the pontiff he used his chains and physically hit the trio, inflicting a lot of damage. Again, it would be the hero's turn. Black used his special missile attack and fired 8 Bernaga missiles. Each of these obtained between 4,300 and 5,800% damage against the pontiff. Gavin also used his special attack ready and launched his elemental tornado boomerang with his Avitus, where a cyclone of fire, thunder and ice hit the pontiff heavily. The pontiff attacked them again with his chains, and used his special attacks, where through his decapitated neck he created a black hole. It was a combination of the dark magic Ultima Flare and Asterer. This absorbed the energy of his enemies. The heroes were left with a negative state of berserk, so Angie again saved the day and cured the states of the three with the antidotes. Gavin summoned Nikolash. He began to throw Frizaga blizzards at the headless pontiff. He counterattacked with Bernaga. Angie he reminded Gavin of the strategy to recover the energy of the summons. The Bernaga blows that the pontiff created were very strong, so when Nikolash was ready to use his special attack, Gavin ordered him to use it and he cast Polar Wind Aurora, doing great damage. But Nikolash would be weakened. Gavin dispelled him. The trio returned to the fight again and Angie summoned Ganesha. The elephant began to use Aquarga without stopping. Water attacks were a weakness of the pontiff. Angie also ordered him. Ganesha used Aquarga on herself to recharge her energy since the pontiff was attacking her with the chains, and finally, Ganesha used his special attack and launched holy water against the vassal, completely defeating him, thus giving the boys the victory. At the end of the duel with the headless pontiff, Katie entered the organ room. She had heard the duel from outside and he wanted to help, but luckily for everyone, the trio had been able to defeat the vassal. The organ music stopped and the great cathedral once again had its usual atmosphere. "I'm so glad you were able to defeat that demon," Katie said. "It was hard, but we did it," Gavin replied happily. "I keep thinking about those strange writings," Angie said. "Strange writings? What are you referring to?" asked Katie. "In the crypt and in purgatory. There are some writings in a strange language," said Black. "Let's go see. Maybe I can help you," said Katie, and the four headed first to the crypt where the writing was, and it said, "Abira ed soicaps sol ne senoiadem e cod sol eucolic nia ka oma ovunus ed e trap aries y otor aries olzus, roguepleb ed les lc dial. Olzus ne asnacsediuqa. I had been here before." "This is Mo language," said Katie, putting her fingers on the writings. "Yes, I thought so. A vassal we fought with a few years ago spoke it," said Gavin. "Do you speak that language?" asked Angie. "For some reason, I can understand it," said Katie. "What does it say?" asked Black. "Here rests the final deity Belphemet. It will be yours, bringing the 12 medallions." "It's what it says," Katie exclaimed. "The medallions that the OVLAT guys talked about," Angie answered. "Let's defeat the dark deities. They will give us the 12 medallions," said Black. "Let's go to the Purgatory Chapel," said Katie. And the Purgatory one had the same type of writing. "Here rests the final deity Omega. Will be yours with an offering of 1,000,000 wealth," said Katie. "It's Rodz's million." Alessio will take care of that, said Angie. We only have to bring the offerings that both of them ask for, said Katie. Thank you very much, Katie. I apologize for not trusting you from the beginning. Without you, we wouldn't have been able to read the Mo language. You have been a great help, Angie told her, and Katie accepted the apology, smiling. Let's go back to the ranch, it's already late. Tomorrow we have classes, remember, Gavin said, and that's how everyone returned to the ranch through the lamp inside the great cathedral, where that night at the ranch they celebrated having discovered the sanctuaries of the deities Belphemid and Omega endings.